Everything changed. In a matter of seconds, a legendary franchise teetering on a knife's edge. Welcome to NFL Nexus, your home for cinematic, deep dive explainers of the source material shaping the league. Before we pull back the curtain on the Las Vegas Raiders 2026 powder keg, support the channel by becoming a channel member. Hit that button to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment on what you thought down below. Okay, let's step to the edge of the abyss. Right now, the Las Vegas Raiders are stepping into an offseason that honestly feels less like a traditional team rebuild and way more like a volatile explosive just waiting for a single solitary spark. We are looking at a compounding cascade of crises here. Think about it. A single medical flag that absolutely stopped the football world in its tracks. A rookie quarterback carrying the crushing, frankly unimaginable weight of a billion-dollar franchise, and a defensive secondary being completely, desperately overhauled by unproven late-round draft picks. The margin for error in Las Vegas right now, it is absolute zero. Every breath, every single whistle blown in training camp feels remarkably heavy. So let me ask you this. What happens when the meticulous blueprint for your entire future is shredded at the absolute 11th hour? That is the heavy, haunting question echoing through the silent halls of the Raiders facility right now. The emotional toll on this front office, it has to be staggering. I mean, think about the months of scouting, the complex salary cap calculus, the late-night boardroom negotiations, the coffee cups piling up, all of it just vanishing into thin air in an instant. To really grasp this, we have to start our analysis with the ghost of a trade that almost was. A stalled mega-trade that instantly sent shockwaves through the entire organization, fundamentally altering their trajectory for the next half-decade. We are talking about edge rusher Max Crosby, the undeniable, beating heart and fierce face of the franchise. The Raiders were on the absolute brink of trading him away. Let that sink in. It was a staggering, jaw-dropping move that would have completely redefined their offseason strategy, stripping away their cornerstone defender, yes, but flooding their war room with franchise-altering draft capital for years to come. 2. That is the number. 2 first-round draft picks. That is exactly what the Baltimore Ravens were ready to hand over to Las Vegas in exchange for Crosby. Now, in the modern hyper-competitive landscape of the NFL, 2 first-rounders isn't just a trade package. It is the ultimate, undisputed currency. It is the holy grail of team building. It's the golden key to unlocking a total, ground-up franchise transformation. A massive haul like that, it allows a team to draft an elite franchise-saving quarterback and simultaneously protect him with a foundational left tackle. The Ravens were willing to pay this steep, exorbitant price to secure a championship-caliber defense immediately. They wanted that ring now. And the Raiders, they were willing to let their superstar walk out the door to stockpile that massive capital. The paperwork was all but finalized. The ink was literally ready to dry. The rest of the league was actively bracing for the seismic impact of this blockbuster. But the chaos, it hit in 3 distinct, agonizing stages. First, the trade agreement was officially reached. The terms were set in stone. The front offices shook hands over the phone, a massive sigh of relief, right? Then came the second point, the physical. Now, in the NFL, we all know this is almost always a mere formality, a routine medical check to dot the I's and cross the T's before you go ahead and set up the press conference. But Crosby failed it. In a single instant, the atmosphere in that room completely changed. The Baltimore Ravens, staring down the barrel of sacrificing 2 precious first-round picks, suddenly didn't want to take the gamble. The profound risk of absorbing a massive contract for a potentially injured player was instantly too high. The medical flag was raised, and absolute panic set in. And that brings us to point 3. The deal was reversed, pulled entirely off the table, snapped right back to reality. Just like that, the illusion shattered. Crosby unexpectedly remains in Las Vegas, and the Raiders are suddenly left empty-handed, completely bereft of the premium draft capital they had, in their minds, already spent. This brutal reality is captured perfectly by ESPN's Seth Walder. He makes a really fascinating point, noting that trading a soon-to-be 29-year-old player on a massive salary-laden contract for 2 first-round picks was a clear strategic victory, despite the undeniable emotional pain of losing a beloved fan favorite. To truly understand the gravity of this collapse, you have to look closely at the salary cap implications. Shedding Crosby's massive contract would have cleared desperately needed cap space, real financial freedom that could have been used to sign elite free agents and completely reshape the entire roster's identity. Armed with that money and those elite draft assets, the Raiders would be in total control of their destiny. But because this deal came completely undone, Walder handed the Raiders a staggering C grade for their overall offseason moves. A potential front office masterstroke turned into a massive, lingering what if, leaving the Raiders brass heavily criticized and forcing them to navigate the incredibly tight 2026 season with a massive defensive contract still heavily anchoring their books. They are financially locked in. Section 1. The quarterback succession plan, veteran Polish versus the #1 pick. So that dramatic, multi-million-dollar reversal on defense, it directly, immediately intensifies the pressure on the offensive side of the ball. With the defense's future suddenly complicated by those strict salary constraints we just talked about, new head coach Clint Kubiak faces a monumentally high-stakes decision under center. Every single move he makes here, it will be intensely scrutinized by a rabid fanbase and a highly critical media. The Raiders invested the ultimate asset, the #1 overall draft pick, in quarterback Fernando Mendoza. But as we all know, having the ultimate asset and successfully deploying it are two very, very different things. In one corner, you have Kirk Cousins, a poised, veteran presence. He knows exactly how to manage a game, he understands complex, disguised NFL defenses, and he is unquestionably ready for the intense, blinding pressure of Week 1. In the other corner, you have Fernando Mendoza, the #1 overall pick, the undisputed quarterback of the future. But he is a rookie, facing the monumental, overwhelming task of adjusting to the violent speed and intricate complexity of the National Football League. The tension here is absolutely palpable. Do you throw the entire future of your franchise into the fire immediately, risking his shattered confidence? Or do you rely on the 38-year-old veteran's safety net to safely weather the early storm? 3%. This isn't just a number on a page. It is the defining obstacle of the Raiders' entire offseason. This glaring, deeply concerning statistic is the very core of the Raiders' offensive dilemma. At Indiana last year, Fernando Mendoza was an accomplished, highly touted college player. He masterfully tore up collegiate defenses week in and week out. He looked unstoppable. But he took snaps under center just 3% of the time. 3%. Let that sink in for a moment. Indiana's offense ran almost exclusively out of the shotgun. Now, why does that matter? Because Mendoza is fundamentally unaccustomed to the precise, measured, backpedaling footwork required of an NFL quarterback starting a play directly behind the center. It's an entirely different muscle memory. When we talk about the smallest, microscopic details defining an entire professional career, this 3% is the jagged, imposing mountain Mendoza has to climb, while the entire football world watches him attempt it. So why is that 3% so deeply, incredibly critical right now? It all comes down to the demanding, highly specific requirements of Clint Kubiak's offensive scheme. Kubiak's system relies heavily on under-center formations. It demands complex, highly deceptive play-action fakes. Let's think about the literal physical mechanics here for a second. There is a stark, profound difference between faking a handoff out of the shotgun, where your eyes are always downfield scanning the secondary, compared to turning your back completely to the defense while under center. When you turn your back to carry out that fake, you lose sight of the linebackers, you temporarily lose sight of the safeties rotating. The entire picture of the field disappears for a crucial second. Furthermore, NFL offensive schemes demand the quarterback make incredibly complex pre-snap line adjustments, identifying the Mike linebacker, changing blocking protections, all while managing a relentlessly ticking play clock. The intellectual and physical load of transitioning from a simple, shotgun-only college offense to Kubiak's demanding pro-level system is staggering. It is arguably the hardest, most complex transition in professional sports. Which leads directly to the deliberate, highly cautious strategy the Raiders are adopting right now. As reported by ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, he notes, Mendoza will be ready when he's ready. They don't have to rush him into Week 1 action until he's fully prepared. To avoid ruining their franchise centerpiece with undue, overwhelming pressure before he's got that footwork down, the team is heavily favoring Cousins as the Week 1 starter. It's a patient strategy, right? It's the blueprint we've seen work masterfully for teams who sat generational talents like Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson during their rookie campaigns. Let them learn, let them breathe. Now, Las Vegas hasn't totally closed the door, leaving a microscopic margin of opportunity if Mendoza miraculously wows absolutely everyone in training camp and perfectly masters the footwork overnight. But the clear, mandated plan from the top down is patience. They are buying crucial time to protect their most valuable investment. Section 2. A late-round steal emerging. The youth movement on defense. But time is a luxury the Raiders absolutely might not have on the defensive side of the ball. Remember that failed Max Crosby megatrade we discussed at the start of this explainer? The heavy, lingering fallout of keeping Crosby on that massive salary-laden contract means the Raiders do not have the luxury of spending big money on veteran free agents in the secondary. The checkbook is closed. Because of the financial chains of the Crosby deal, the organization is betting its absolute life on untested rookies to stop some of the most lethal, high-flying passing attacks in the league. The pressure on this rookie class is truly, profoundly immense. The Raiders selected 4 defensive backs in the 2026 draft: cornerbacks Hezekiah and Jermond McCoy, and safeties Tradan Stukes and Dalton Johnson. Look, this isn't just adding developmental depth for the practice squad. This is a systemic, desperate overhaul. The organization is betting absolutely everything on the raw athleticism and unrefined potential of these young players. With several key roster spots wide open as training camp approaches, the coaching staff is throwing these young men straight into the deep end, demanding they prove themselves immediately against elite NFL receivers. Now, amidst this cluster of unproven rookies, one specific, absolutely fascinating story is demanding our absolute attention. 5th-round pick Hezekiah. He took an incredibly unconventional, gritty, exhausting journey just to make it to the NFL. He spent 3 grueling years at Florida International, fighting tooth and nail for national recognition, before finally transferring to Cal for the 2025 season. And that single, calculated move, it paid massive dividends. In just 1 season with the Golden Bears, Masses completely transformed himself into one of the top defensive backs in the ACC, earning prestigious first-team honors. He plays with a massive chip on his shoulder, and in a high-stakes NFL training camp context, playing with a chip on your shoulder means never taking a single rep off. It means pressing veteran receivers harder at the line of scrimmage, aggressively diving for loose balls and non-contact drills, and showing a visceral, predatory hunger that makes veteran coaches stop and take notice. That intense mentality, it is already turning heads in Las Vegas before the pads have even officially come on. Masses isn't just surviving this violent transition to the pros, he is rapidly ascending the depth chart. First, he didn't just quietly show up to mandatory minicamp to learn the playbook. Reporters on the ground noted he looked remarkably comfortable, instantly standing out among players drafted much, much higher than him. Second, that undeniable, eye-catching performance forced the defensive coaches to give him extended, highly scrutinized rotations with the first-team defense. They had to see what they had. And third, he is now directly challenging second-year pro Darian Porter, who started 10 games last year as a rookie, mind you, for a permanent starting job on the outside boundary. Coach Kubiak is refusing to just hand Porter the job based on seniority, insisting this intense physical competition plays out organically, right there on the practice field. If Masses keeps exhibiting this lockdown potential, he could easily be the definitive, franchise-altering steal of the entire 2026 draft. Section 3. The high-stakes reality. A franchise in transition. When you pull the cinematic lens back and view these isolated situations as a whole, a chilling, intensely clear picture emerges. This is a franchise in a violent, unpredictable state of transition. The front office, the coaching staff, and the players are all walking a frayed tightrope, and there is absolutely no safety net below them. Every single roster move, every individual rep in practice is laced with massive long-term consequence. The tension across this entire roster, it is completely suffocating. It is a literal powder keg. Think about it. You have the lingering psychological and crippling financial hangover of a stalled superstar megatrade that would have completely changed everything about their rebuild. You have a 38-year-old veteran desperately trying to hold off a #1 overall pick, a highly touted rookie who is fiercely fighting to unlearn his entire college footwork just to take a snap from under center. And you have late-round, unproven rookies being thrust into critical, highly exposed starting spots on defense, simply because the money is tied up elsewhere. The stakes for this 2026 season could not possibly be higher. Which leaves us staring directly into the abyss with one final, unavoidable question. Will this powder keg of an offseason explode into an unexpected glory's triumph under Clint Kubiak? Or will the sheer, crushing weight of these missed opportunities and intense, chaotic positional battles tear their 2026 season apart before it even officially begins? The pressure is squarely on, and you better believe the entire league is watching closely. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive. Don't forget to subscribe to NFL Nexus, like this explainer, leave a comment with your predictions down below, and become a channel member to support the most detailed explainers on the gridiron. We will see you next time.